Uh, I got a lot of shit on my mind, and I'm sure Twitch is telling people that I fucking am playing Overwatch. I'm not gonna be playing Overwatch. Not anyway. Not right now. I just, I thought it might be a good idea for me to kind of talk about what's going on with me and work through some shit. So, I'm retiring from the Air Force. It is the 3rd of March. Tomorrow, I do my final out. And then May 1st is my last day in the United States Air Force. And actually, quite surprisingly, I have a lot of feelings about it, which is stupid because I shouldn't be surprised, right? Like, oh, I shouldn't be surprised that the Air Force matters to me. I shouldn't be surprised that I have a lot of emotions about leaving. Um, I shouldn't be surprised that my brain has been absolutely inundated with well, a lot of thoughts about how should I end it. Um, should I have a party? I've gotten a lot of requests to have a ceremony from friends. Um, that's not going to happen. I. It's been hard, and I don't know why. Right? Like I've known it's been coming for months, fucking about a year, and still for the last month or so, it's been kicking my ass. I'm 38 years old, and I joined the Air Force 10 days after I turned 18. So I've been doing this job longer than I ever was a civilian. And anybody who grows up the way I did understands that when you're a child in America, you're really not even a civilian. You're in somebody else's house. Like you work for somebody else. Like you don't get to determine what happens with you, good, bad, or indifferent. You don't get a say in a lot. And so most of my life before I joined the Air Force was built on what my mom wanted, what my family needed, uh, what the government could do, what it couldn't do. And then I joined the Air Force to try to make my own place in the world, I guess. And I think I've done that. I think I have. But still, like it's 20 years, and I have to take some time to like think about it. But a month is a long time for me to think about any one thing, and it's been weighing on me. And I like literally, I'm sitting here and I'm not even talking to anybody. There's nobody in chat. I just feel like I have to get this out of my head. And I've tried writing about it. I've written a lot. And so I thought I would run through some of the topics that are stuck in my head. Maybe I'll cut them down into videos later. And then maybe by just getting it out there, I'll feel better and be able to move forward with some of the other stuff I have going on in my life. So I guess crazily enough, I thought I've been thinking about death, right? Because death is an ending, right? Death is an ending to something. And sorry for the hat. My hair's way too long. I need to get a haircut. And this hat was made for me by somebody very close to me. So it was nice that I happened to find it in the closet when I went looking for a hat. But I don't know why, but I've been thinking about death as an ending, right? And what I've learned about that, right? As you go through your life, like more and more people are gonna pass away. They're gonna move on. to whatever the hell comes next. And anybody who says they know what that is can suck a dick. But what I can say is this, is that a couple years back I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and let me just try to pull it up here. It was Kevin Smith, and he was talking about death, right? Because he had a near-death experience. Kevin Smith is one of my favorite directors, right? So if you were looking for... I love elegance. I love simplicity, right? Like, I love it when something... When let me find the best possible definition of elegance for what I'm thinking about. Okay, so refined grace or dignified propriety, tasteful richness of design or ornamentation, dignified gracefulness or restrained beauty of style, scientific precision, neatness, and simplicity, right? So when my favorite songs are the ones that are not super complicated, and somehow it's such an easy thing. It seems so simple, and yet when you come out the back end of it, you feel something incredible. So, let me do this for you. I'm gonna play a song because I don't care if this gets demonetized. It's more about sharing something. So this song is by Wade Bowen, and it's called "Who I Am." And I might end up singing with it because I've been drinking, but it's such a simple song, and it's super elegant. Like, the story is told with very little detail, and somehow you get the full picture, and millions of people can relate to it. This video itself has 2.5 million views. The next one has 2.4 million. I once asked, and the way I found the song is, I ask people the question constantly. What song could you not afford to lose? So people go, what's your favorite song? That's a bullshit question. Because your favorite song changes from day to day. But I asked a girl in the desert, I said, hey, like, if there was one song you couldn't lose in your life, what would it be? And this was what she gave me. And I asked a lot of people, and I have all their songs. And I tend to ask it of people because I want to hold on to them. And you learn so much by asking that question. So I'm going to play it, and let's go from that.
Tonight's matchup, me versus the ugly band.
Stupid ad.
If I can eke out a win,
Here we go.
It's going to be a miracle, baby.
Oh, it wouldn't be a miracle because Geico gives you a team of
Make sure the
experts
sound's
to help
playing.
manage your plan.
Geico is awesome, baby.
Okay, so I don't want you to get feedback, but through the microphone, because it'll play twice. But here you go. I'm going to put it on mute.
I love to watch the sunset as it fades behind the trees. Love to talk with God and get down upon my knees. And I love the times I spend with my family and friends. Love to dream about all the places I've never been. And I love to watch
Alright, so super simple. I could play the rest of the song, but to be honest, like, it's not the point of this podcast or whatever. I love to watch you laugh and smile. I love to watch you dream. I love the way you take my hand just to let me know you believe in me. And it really, all it is like when you love somebody and you meet that somebody and they make you feel like who you are, right? It's such a simple song, and I love the elegance of it. Like, I love that refined beauty of it, that scientific, just forget all the flowery words. I love you, woman. And I guess my thing is that when you listen to Kevin Smith, he tells the story about the Sandman comic, and I'm going to try to find it for you. He had a near-death experience. He's one of my favorite directors, and in his movies, he tells these really simple stories that have, like, a lot of meaning. And I've been a big fan since I was a kid, and he has a way with words that just gets the whole point across really simply. And I don't know, man. I love the way he's talking about death here, and the way he shares a comic book from when he was a kid. And if you know Kevin Smith, you know he loves comics. So let me try to find.
Don't talk to Jennifer. Maybe I was cognizant and told at an early age. And they represent death in the comic book. Morpheus, the character of Dream. Main character is Dream. Morpheus, the character of Dream. He's part of the Endless. And he's got other siblings, Delirium, Desire. One of the siblings is Death. And they represent death in the comic book. You know, you're used to seeing the fucking Scythe and the fucking Grim Reaper and shit. She's the little emo girl, goth girl, wearing an ankh around her neck and shit like that. It was written in the 90s. And they don't tell you right away that she's Death. As you're reading the issue, you're like, oh, shit, I think she's meant to be Death. She's ferrying souls over to the other side. So you see a baby pass, and she's holding the baby, and then there's the refrain is like, I hear the sound of her wings, and that's taking this soul over to the next place as she's sitting around talking to her brother. And so she eventually gets into a room with this older guy, who's like, who are you? And you know, she's like, I'm here for you. You know who I am. And he's like, that's it? He's like, oh my God, I did all these things. I worked my fingers to the bone, and what did I get? This is it. What did I get? And she says, like a line that when I read it when I was 18, it was powerful. But when I was laying on the fucking table, it was constantly going through my head and made it all easier. Made me kind of at peace with the idea of dying. There's this line she says to the guy. She goes, you got what everybody gets. You got a lifetime. And as I was laying there, I was like, oh my God, I got a lifetime. Like that's what it was. Nothing more, nothing fucking less. And I did.
So I kind of wrote it out a little bit shorter, but basically he's telling a story about a comic book you read, but he says death is ferrying souls to the other side. And there's this like older guy, and she's there to collect his soul, and he's like, that's it? I did all of this. I worked my fingers to the bone. And what did I get for it? And she says, you got what everybody gets, man. You got a lifetime. And I heard this probably a year ago, 2 years ago, whenever it was that they did the podcast, and it fucking blew me away. It literally, I don't know why, but that day it knocked the wind out of me, and it still resonates with me today. Like, because that's what you get. You get a lifetime. So for me in the Air Force, I got a career. I got what everybody gets. I got a career. And for all the people out there who've worked with me and for me and around me, who hate me or dislike me or have disdain for me, like, dude, I get it. Like, I want you to know, like, I'm completely cognizant that I'm not an easy person to work with. I lived my career the best way that I knew at any given moment. It meant more to me this job meant more to me than almost anything in my entire life. In fact, and I'm going to tell the story finally. I'm going to tell why I retired. So, I did not have a great career. Nothing about it. Well, if you looked at the Air Force, if you looked at my EPRs, you would say, this guy, you know, every couple of years I got a bad performance report. He's just not one of us, basically, if you looked at my records. And I'm not. Never have been. But god damn it, I love this country, and I loved the Air Force, and I gave it my whole heart. My whole heart. I gave. You know, they teach us a lot in the Air Force about our, I got fucking dust all over me, but our unlimited liability clause, which is basically that when you enlist in the military, you write a blank check to your country that is worth up to and including your life. And I gave more of my life to my country than I've ever given to myself. There are days where I've thought about what my retirement would look like, what my ceremony would be, what I would say when I got on that stage. You sit through enough retirements, you're going to have those thoughts. And I could never find it. You know, everybody gets up there. So the rough layout of an Air Force retirement is, you know, they escort the family members in. Everybody in the crowd looks at the family members. They look at the spouses. They look at the kids. They look at the cousins and brothers and uncles and sisters and moms and all that, right? And they try to figure out, like, what the story is behind this person. Because really, you work 70 hours a week, kind of together, kind of apart. But so often you don't know anything about these people and what matters to them. And I realize that now is that nobody really out there knows what matters to me. Maybe they do. Like, I try to share. I try to be more hard on the sleeve guy than most. But that happens. Then, you know, they do some ceremonial type things. People stand up, you do the flag, you do the chaplain does the invocation. All fine. And then at some point the commander or whoever, whatever officer's officiating it, gets up there and generally reads some lines from their EPRs, tells you they did this and they did that, their performance reports. They you know, were amazing here, they were amazing there, they talk about the bases they've been to, blah, blah, blah. And then they thank them for their service and thank them for everything they did. Maybe they'll tell a funny anecdote. And at some point it gets to the part where the member gets to speak. The person who's retiring gets to speak. And they all get up there. And they thank everybody who helped them get there. Everybody who helped them along the way. And that's the hard part for me. So I could never wrap my head around that. You know, every promotion ceremony you go to, every commander's call you sit through, they tell you how you didn't get there alone. People helped you along the way. And I can honestly say I can count on one hand the people who helped me while I was in the Air Force do well in the Air Force. And I don't need the whole hand. And so that is the part of the retirement ceremony thing that is hardest for me. Is I wanted to have friends. I wanted to have people who wanted me to succeed. I wanted to feel a part of the Air Force. And somebody once told me, you know, Kevin, like, you may not believe in God, but I believe God speaks through you. And I think that's my lot in life, is that I don't have a whole lot of friends, and I don't have a whole lot of supporters. I don't have a whole lot of people on my side, you know. I'm there for people. People don't expect to need to be there for me. And so it's been hard to look at retirement and look back and go, all these people helped me out. And so I couldn't have a ceremony because of that, because the truth is there's a lot of things wrong in the Air Force, and God knows I tried to fix them, but I got to a point where I was spitting in the wind. So let me get back to why I'm retiring. I don't mind failure. Failure is important. Failure is, it's the gig, right? And that's the trick to life, right? Is if you want to do well, you better fall a lot. You're going to have to fall, because otherwise you're not pushing your limits. And so I don't mind failing. But probably filled that up more than I needed to. But I finally hit a failure thing that I couldn't fail at, and I failed. So I'll try not to get into too much detail, but I was inspecting a unit, a wing or a squadron or whatever, and I saw some occupational safety health violations, which is not uncommon, right? Before I say anything bad about the unit, I will say this. The Air Force decided that it was going to follow OSHA guidance. I think it was about 2007 or whatever. They gave up pretty much all military exemption, which under OSHA, military is exempt if they have a military unique mission or whatever, where they can't comply because it's the military. And the Air Force said, well, we don't really need that, we can comply. And then provided not enough funding to actually allow us to comply with the guidance. And that's evident because I've inspected, I don't know, I would say about 30 units, and I've worked in plenty where we just never were compliant. And I went to a unit, and it was on a peninsula. So the entire base was surrounded by water. Previously, it was an EPA Superfund site, and millions of dollars were spent removing chemicals from the environment, trying to clean up the messes they had made previously. And I got to this base, and they were just not... They wrote all their own rules to make sure that they weren't putting these chemicals back out into the environment and not exposing their people to it. But they didn't follow them. And I fought as hard as I could to make sure that unit's leadership knew just how serious it was. Because that unit wasn't just putting their own people at risk, they were putting thousands of other people at risk by what they were doing. And the entire local population and the wildlife and the ecosystem. And I'm not an environmentalist by any means. I mean, I don't hate the environment, but what I'm saying is this is not something I wrap my head around daily. And they'd gone so far that I couldn't let it pass. And I tried to work with my bosses and my leadership on it to make sure that the statement was made. And I failed. I failed to get the story told. And I failed in communicating with my leadership. And I failed at solving the problem. And that inspection report went through with my name on it, saying I thought things were pretty okay. They were just like every other base when they weren't. They were way worse. And the time came where I just had to... I was already in trouble with my bosses because, you know, nobody likes to get yelled at by their subordinate. I was in trouble with them because I was disrespectful, because I was trying to... I thought it was worth it to put my own career at risk to try to push home how important it was to me and to the people being exposed to hazardous chemicals. And I just didn't sell the car. I failed. You know, they didn't believe me or whatever, but after that I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. I couldn't keep having my name show up on inspection reports saying where I didn't have any say in what the end result of that inspection was. My integrity didn't allow it. And let's talk about integrity for a second, right? So any airman, any person in the Air Force, if you ask them what the definition of integrity is, they're going to say the following words, roughly. They're going to say, doing the right thing when nobody's looking. I'm going to repeat it again, then I'm going to light a cigarette, and I want you to think about it. Integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's looking. So, how can Kevin have a problem with the Air Force definition of integrity? Well, first of all, the Air Force definition of integrity isn't doing the right thing when nobody's looking. The Air Force definition of integrity is the willingness to do the right thing when nobody's looking. The willingness. There's no requirement for action. There's no requirement for action in the Air Force definition of integrity. Willingness is just a generalized feeling. But willingness to do the right thing when nobody's looking is to do the right thing when nobody's looking. If you're a good person, the easiest time to do the right thing is when nobody's looking. Right? I remember I was a kid. I couldn't have been 10. And we were at one of my brother's football games. Maybe I was 10 or more. I don't know. We were at one of my brother's football games. And my mom always went to his games. And I don't know why, but we all went. And I went under I was playing. I was just, I went off on my own, and I went under the stands, and I found a $20 bill. I lost my mind. I had never had $20 in my hand at that point in my life. I was so fucking excited. But I tried to do the right thing, and I went to my mom and I said, hey, like, I found this $20 bill. It was rough. It was underneath the bleachers. It was roughly like where we're sitting, where we're at right now, but below it. And she's like, all right, well, go down to the concessionaire there and get, 4 hot dogs, and this and that and the other thing. And I was like, but it's not our money. And she was like, yeah, but like, like somebody dropped it. They weren't going to find it. Go for it. And so I did. I went and was so excited. Like, we didn't have a whole lot of food. And I, being the youngest, there was not a whole lot of ways I could help my mom back then. Put food on the table or whatever. So you'll notice that I started out, when nobody was looking, I did the right thing. I took it to an adult. I went up to him and I said, hey, like, I found this money, blah, blah, blah. So I did the right thing. And then I got told to do the wrong thing. And then I went and did the wrong thing. I bought everything my mom told me to buy. And I went and brought it back. And when I think about the Air Force definition of integrity, that's what I think about. Think about that moment with my own mother. Is that when I was alone and nobody was looking, I chose to do the right thing. Easy. And then, when I was surrounded by people happy to do the wrong thing, I did the wrong thing easy. Integrity is doing the right thing when everybody's looking and they're happy to do the wrong thing. And I've seen that nearly every day of my career. And I finally hit a moment where I had to say, well, you're not going to use me in this. And that's why I'm retiring. I didn't run out of love for the Air Force. I certainly didn't run out of love for my airmen. I didn't run out of energy to fight. It's that the fights I was having, I was losing every week, every inspection, and my name was being used to tell people that everything was okay. And so I had to go. And so I pushed the button that day. People told me, oh, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. I did. I had to do it. I didn't want to. But I don't get to choose the assignment my country gives me. All I can choose is whether or not my name is attached to a bad product. And I fully believe we were producing a bad product. So I got forced into this weird position where I'm not ready to retire. I wasn't close to being ready. But I had to. And maybe that's why I'm so upset today. Maybe that's why I've been so upset. But, yeah, it's a bittersweet ending, right? You know. Anyway, in a minute here I'm going to take a break because I got to use the restroom, and then I'll be back and I'll kind of continue trying to figure out what I want to talk about next. But I just, yeah, that's kind of where my head's at. And I'm doing my best to hang on right now because I'm not happy. Because as prepared as I am to fail, I never thought I would fail on something so important to the lives and the health and well-being of airmen, of their families, of their kids, and of the American people. And I truly, truly, truly am utterly disappointed in myself, because I win so much when it doesn't matter, and I lost when it did. Alright, break time. Let me check out my whatchamacallit, my titles or whatever the fuck they are. Make sure they're not stupid, because they do that. Restream is weird. Alright, not messing around. Update titles. Alright, so I updated that. I doubt I'll get any viewers on this, and that's okay. I'm not really worried about that tonight. It's more about just getting this shit off my chest. So, I guess let's run through some stuff. Start with my Airman's Brief. So, I wrote this about a decade ago. I'm going to read it to you. So, I don't know if other people do this. I do it. I'm weird like that. As a younger NCO, like non-commissioned officer, I would think about like what my in-processing brief would be like if I was the chief of the squadron one day. And then I was in Qatar in 2013, and I met this airman. He wasn't in my unit. He was in another unit, and you know, he did some really good work for me, and I put him up for an award, and he won the award. And he just thanked me, and he asked me, he's like, I don't know, what I'm supposed to do, where I fit, how I fit, He's like, I do bad. He's like, I don't do well in the Air Force. I want so bad, and I try so hard, but I can't. And so I wrote this for him and for every airman like him. And so I'm going to read it. And I call it my Airman's Brief. This is what you need to know. No small amount of thought, energy, or effort went into where you are today. About 3 years of planning, money, and other resources went into you before you walked into the door of your recruiter's office. That day you signed the papers, we knew you were coming. Not you, but we knew that a version of you would be there. That moment in time, that seems like a blur now, probably was then, was all part of the Air Force's plan for you. And you are, before me today, you're exactly what we thought you would be. You're a combination of our planning and your efforts. And we knew, like, roughly what you would look like when you got here. Some of you would get hammered along the way. PT fails, failed end of course exams, bad supervision, lazy supervision, poor training, and inaccessible leadership. We knew that. It's part of the deal. Some of you would have been given a clear path to success. Your supervisors would fall in love with you from the moment that they met you, and they would take you under their wing as though you were their own son or daughter. And they would train you right and make sure you were fed and teach you some lessons and send you on your merry way. And some of the versions of you didn't make it here today. They washed out, punched out, or got ejected from our system. Some of them would have been phenomenal airmen. We knew that too. It's by design. Each of you has and will face different struggles. You'll face obstacles. For some of you, those obstacles will be too hard to overcome. And by the way, that's fair. Like, no judgment. For others, they'll be too easy for you to ever learn from. And for a very few of you, no obstacle will ever be too great. We have evolved to get each of you here today. To call the weak, we've had to lose a few strong. And as though we were cutting out a tumor. So, if we knew all this, how did we know that you would be here? Well, it's simple. We knew we would never really be able to get rid of the weakness in our system. Just as much as we knew we'd only be able to make a few into the strong. There will always be a weakest link. There will always be an alpha airman. We'll always need mediocre troops. I call them bricks, right? Some people got to be bricks. Some people got to be the spackle, the mortar, whatever. We'll always manage to create so-called sharp troops. It's the nature of the business. So we knew a version of you would be here. As a side note, I hate the term sharp troop. In my midget mind, there are two types of sharp troops, and they're both just as useless as each other. When I think of the word sharp, I see a blade. There are many types of blades, but the Air Force only has two. The first kind is beautiful and shiny and sits in a nice case, never to be used for what it was made. Even if you did try to use it for what it was made, its edges are dull. We see them all the time with a perfectly pressed uniform sitting behind a desk somewhere looking at YouTube until somebody with enough rank shows up. They pop up and they smile real bright and they commence to just sucking up and kissing ass. And they disgust me. The other sharp troop is just as useless but 10 times more dangerous. This sharp troop is built for stabbing. Its edges are dull, but its point is sharp. And it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. It smiles and shines just like the other, but consistently and constantly places itself in the back of fellow airmen. It seeks fame and fortune and does not care who has to get cut to get there. Its only mission is its own reputation. This airman sickens me. As for me, I'm not a sharp troop, dude. I don't cut. I'm not a blade at all. I'm an absolute destructive blunt force. I'm trauma. I am the business end of Air Force doctrine. I am purely made for destruction and only used for peace. I am 10,000 pounds of kinetic energy ready to rain hellfire and death on those who would do my country harm. You'll never have to sharpen me. You don't have to keep me oiled. I do my best work dirty, and you don't have to swing me accurately. Just point me toward the mission, and it will be done. Sharp troops don't have shit on me. Everything they represent is weakness and an unwillingness to do what is necessary. Sharp troops want to pick and choose their mission based on where they think it will get them. All that matters to me is the mission, and when the mission is done, I will go home, I'll get a nap, and be ready to go again in under 3 hours. I'll be dented and bruised and tired. I won't look sharp. I'll just look hungry for another mission. So what does this mean for you? It means you need to take a long, hard, serious look in the mirror. This life is not about who you are. It's about how you are. If you are not who you want to be, that is because you are not how you ought to be. If you're standing around worried about all your bad breaks, your crappy supervisor, that EPR that didn't close in time for you to be allowed to test, then I can tell you that your failure is just that. It's yours. The world we created for you is filled with opportunities for success and absolute pitfalls as well. We place barriers in your way. You can collect $200 when you pass go. Those who get distracted by what is behind door number 2 will most likely fall into some quicksand along the way. There are no easy ways to the end. There's no shortcut to the top, even for the sharpest of troops. Their success can only last so long before we find them and we eviscerate them. Should they make it to the top, they will likely find that the mission falters under their management, and they will quietly be swept aside. Not all of you can get there, but some of you can. Stop whining. Stop worrying about what you were owed, what you didn't get, and what you ought to have. Start worrying about what you could have given, what more you could have done, and what you might have missed. Then deliver on it the next time. Don't judge yourself by what others don't or can't do. The only limits to your capability are those that you placed on yourself. A staff sergeant should do this, and a tech sergeant looks like that, and a master sergeant acts like blank. All of that may have been true until I held the rank. I am my own person. I choose what I want my leadership to look like. I'm fallible, as in I make mistakes. Infallibility is for officers. It is easy for an officer to stand there and tell an airman that they are all fucked up because they never had to do your job. They never could have fucked up your job. It was never not once in the remotest of all possibilities. That said, it's even easier for me to do it because I've fucked everything up and then I learned from it. There's no such thing as fire and forget in this Air Force. In this business we're in, complacency gets you killed, and even worse, it leaves our enemies alive. We must learn from every mistake and work to avoid any others, but they will come. Never forget, for all of the humanitarian missions we do, and we do a ton, the ultimate primal doctrinal goal of the United States Air Force is to place lethal energy on the target every time. We are prepared to die for our country if necessary, but our mission is to make the other person die for theirs. Wish granted. That's my airman's brief. That's what I think every airman should know. To put it simply, we knew you were coming. We're ready for you. You will fail. Some of you will just get ejected. But if your purpose is true, and you fire yourself at the mission, you will do great here. And by the way, I need you to. Because my last failure, I had to. Staying around would have harmed my country. I had to put my name on the line, my career on the line to try to save lives. Will it work? I don't think so. I had to give up the career I love to try to save my Air Force. Ours is a life of sacrifice. You don't always get what you want. But I fired my last best weapon at the problem before me. And so, come tomorrow, I'll never be able to be a weapon for my country again. But it was the only thing I had left in my arsenal. So I did it. So now I gotta have to figure out how to be Mr. Nolan. And I'll do that. That'll be fine. But I'll miss you all, you know? I think back on the way things never were for me, but were for other people, you know? And I want it to be good. But my last fight was fought. Anyway, I guess that's what I wanted to talk about from that front. What else do I want to talk about? Well, alright, so why can't the Air Force innovate? Why is CPI, continuous process improvement, why is AFSO 21, why does everything fail? Why does it all absolutely fucking suck and it all just turns into bullshit? It's actually super simple. It's this little thing called Curtin's adaptive innovation theory. Wait, let me make sure that that's right. Yeah, it's Curtin's adaptation innovation theory. So in 1976, a guy named Curtin came up with this theory and it was all about cognitive styles, and basically what it does is it identifies people as either adapters or innovators, and it creates like a scale. And basically an innovator sounds like what you would think. There are people who aren't afraid to throw away the rule book to make something good happen, to improve it, right? Because a lot of things, a lot of the rules that once applied may no longer apply. And so they're good at finding new solutions to problems. Adaptation type people, adaption people, they enjoy the rules. They live inside the rules. They like the system they're in, and they want to fucking mold themselves around it and live inside of it. And that's basically the business end of it, right? Likes rules, doesn't like rules, right? When it comes to solving problems, adaptive people apply the rule, and innovative people ignore rules and look for a solution, right? So look within the rules for a solution. Look everywhere for a solution. So, what does that mean? Well, when you look at the world, right, you have people who are disruptive. When you look for an innovator, you're going to find somebody who, like, when you find an innovator, you're going to find somebody who's super disruptive. It's going to be a guy like a Steve Jobs who just walks into a room and goes, I want every song I've ever heard on this fucking box right here. I need it to fit my hand. Anybody at the time would have told you that that was fucking insane. And he was like, I want it. That's the answer. That's the key. Right? Innovative, right? Every rule and every construct of current hardware that existed said this is impossible. And he said, well, why? Let's make it possible. Why can't we make it possible? Well, the rules say. And he said, no, just fucking do it. Let's do it. Right? So that's an innovative type personality, right? An adaptive type personality would be the people going, well, hard drive constraints are such that you can't do that. Our ability to make displays is such as this, and blah blah blah. All right. And that's basically the simple difference, right? Is, do you value the rules or not? Well, if you look at the Air Force or the military in general, it's like you're going to find that we're always going to like adaptive people better. And so what does that mean? Well, let me try to show you this. PowerPoint. Put this over here. Alright, so I'm going to show you this, right? This is a rough representation of adaptive and innovative theory, right? So more adaptive is over here on the left, more innovative is here on the right. Your general population is kind of like a bell curve, right? Most people are, either slightly adaptive, slightly innovative. And then, of course, you have the people at the extremes, the super innovative and the super adaptive, right? And the general population, that's what it is. This blue line right here is representative. Like roughly 50% of the population is right here in the middle, and then the rest is out in the extremes, right? Well, in the military, this adds up to the more innovative you are, you're going to be a lower rank. And the less innovative you are, you're going to be a higher rank, right? And what happens is because the higher ranking people are not innovative, the lower ranking people's ideas are not accepted. The more innovative people's ideas are not accepted in the system. Why? Well, let's talk about that. First of all, if you're an innovative person, you're less likely to join the military in the first place, right? So you're super innovative, and you got all these good ideas. Well, some guy's gonna come to you, and they're gonna be like, "Hey, you want to join the military?" And you're gonna be like, "No, they're all brainwashed robots, right?" And that's so right out the gate, they're just less likely to join. Next, adaptive people do better early in service, right? So the first 3, 4, 5 years of your career are completely dictated by your ability to conform. Do you show up on time? Do you wear your uniform right? Do you look the part? Do you pass your PT test? Did you pass your end of course exam the first time? Did you do well on that, right? And the more you like the rules, the less you're going to deviate from those expectations, right? So more adaptive people do better in their first years of service, right? So most, just due to that, just due to the valuing of these rule systems, right? So first of all, the most innovative people will never join. And then a good portion of like the lesser innovative people won't join either. But then if you do get somebody who's super innovative, they're not going to do well. And then I wrote here, identifying hard. So adaptive people are going to be really good at, really early in their career, they're going to learn the hard rules. They're going to understand and value when their boss says don't be late, when their boss says cut your hair, when their boss says shave your face, press your uniform, sign off the forms like this, blah, 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 blah. You're going to do really well in the Air Force because you're going to just buy right into everything, right? But the other thing is, adaptive people view the entire world as a system, not just the rules that are written down, not just the Air Force doctrine or whatever, but the things that they live inside of the most are the things they value the most, right? So the rules that their boss sets for them are going to become slowly, but they're also going to become more valued than the rules that the Air Force sets for them. The things closest to them they value more, right? Because they can't even perceive. The more adaptive you are, the less you can perceive outside of the universe, right? So if you said to an adaptive person like, hey, how would you get from here to, say, New York? You know, they're going to be like, well, what I'd do is I'd go on Expedia and I'd fucking book a ticket and it would be like this and that. Whereas you ask an innovative person, they'd be like, I'll just get them a fucking unicorn, right? Like the most innovative person versus the most adaptive person, right? I'd have to check my bank account. And so if you're adaptive, basically, you're going to conform better. You're going to do better early in your career, which means you'll get promoted faster. You'll make senior airman below the zone maybe, or you'll whatever, because you understand those soft rules as well. About my boss likes it when people do extracurricular activities. When I look at who makes BTZ below the zone, it's going to be the person who goes to college, and they just really just latch on to those soft rules and the hard rules all at once and figure out what their boss likes the best. Whereas an innovative person is still trying to onboard, Air Force doctrine stuff like integrity, service before self, and excellence, right? And try to figure out how to fit all that into their fucking innovative minds. They're just going to do worse. They're going to be up late at night trying to take this shit on board. Trust me, I know, because I did. So, early in your career, not going to do great. But then, early in your career, and then it suddenly starts to happen constantly. Mid and late career is completely defined in the Air Force currently by what I call self-disqualification. So, PT fails, paperwork, and then soft rules, right? I've known people who have followed every rule under the sun, despite what they wanted to do, and their boss just didn't like them. And those are the soft rules. Soft rules are, what does your commander appreciate? What kind of behavior does he like or she like, right? What is the first sergeant like? What is the chief like? What are they going to value, right? And you will see this all the way up to the rank of chief. I'm a senior master sergeant. Soon to be retired, thank God. But basically, self-disqualification. PT fails, paperwork, soft rules, right? What you'll find is that every soft rule is something that when it's somebody they like, it's not important. And when it's somebody they don't like, it is important. The problem with that is not that that's unfair, and it is. The problem with that is that the nature of the business is that adaptive people do well earlier in their careers, and they're going to get promoted faster. And what are their soft rules going to reflect? Compliance. They're going to reflect what the Air Force already wants, right? Like what they already like. They're going to like the rules, so they're going to like people who follow the rules. And so they're going to promote people who are already like them, which is going to leave the innovative people. So if you look at my little fucking squiggly lines here, you'll notice the shift doesn't happen at the 50% mark. That's why, first, not as many super innovative people join, but then they do worse early in their career, and then the more adaptive you are, the better you're going to do. and you'll land up at a higher rank. And adaptive people like the rules, and so it's really easy for them to identify somebody who's like them, a mini-me, so to speak, and somebody who was above them appreciated them, and they're going to appreciate somebody below them because they copy. They mimic. Whatever appears to be successful around them, they do, right? So, for example, the Air Force has been all into CPI, continuous process improvement, and all this stuff. You'd figure that that would pay for an innovative mindset, right? Well, the innovative guy has learned, he's got a million fucking ideas, great ideas, crazy fucking good ideas. Can't possibly figure out how to explain them to this super adaptive boss over here, right? So it doesn't matter how many good ideas these guys have because they're way down here. They're making it to senior airman, staff sergeant, maybe tech, you know, but they don't have any authority and they don't even get to have the conversation with anybody who's not adaptive. They'll never meet a boss and be able to talk to them directly without jumping the chain who's innovative. Now, how do I know this? A couple of years back, I went to Senior NCO Academy, and we were taught this beautiful blue line right here. 50% of the population is roughly innovative, 50% of the population is roughly adaptive, and so we're all copacetic. The problem is that when the people in our class took the test to figure out where they fell on this spectrum, it looked more, and these were all senior NCOs, 14 of them. Let me try to draw this. Shapes. So it looked more like this. I don't know why that happened. See. Gotta try again. I might just have to do like a freehand dealio. So it looked more like this. Alright, so this was my class. I'm trying to make this a unique color. Alright, so this is my senior NCO class, right? This is me. I'm a senior master sergeant, class of 14 senior NCOs. I was the only person who popped up on the innovative side of the spectrum. Every single other person was here or further. Adaptive, right? So all of the people, right, 1 in 14 in the Air Force is innovative at the senior NCO rank or above. Officers, similarly, do not do well on this front because they like people who just stay inside the lines and follow the old rules, right? It's a fucking battle. For the Air Force to say it wants to innovate, it's like telling a zebra to change its stripes. You got to breed it into the system. You can't just go, oh, well, innovate. Because they'll try, but what they're going to do is they're going to regurgitate an old solution to a problem rather than they're going to try to apply every other previous solution to a new problem. That's just the way we're fucking built. Now, how can I prove that? Well, we had what they called a strategic studies group in Senior NCO Academy. Different group of people, but probably the same dynamic. And the question was, what, if any, common language do we need in the DoD? And how should we teach it? I did, and I said immediately, I was like, well, Air Force doctrine is very different than Army doctrine and Marine doctrine, Navy doctrine. The language should be combined. You know, we should all use similar terms for the same exact things. you know, and somebody said, oh, well, we'll just have a school. We'll create a new PME, a new professional military education. That would sound good, except I told these guys I had already done the research, and there was already 14 schools that the Air Force had created to try to teach this common language, to teach adaptability and all this stuff, these skills that they wanted in leaders. And they failed. They all failed. They all suck at it. And I was like, what is different about this school that you're creating? Well, it's a new school. I was like, if you don't have a new plan, then it's not a new answer. The default mode of the military is to do what they've already seen. So they created a PME to do this. So then we'll just create another PME to do this. We'll do it better this time, but there's no answer for how to do it better. The actual simple solution to making a more efficient Air Force is figuring out how to make the Air Force more accepting of innovative people in here. So how do we promote them? How do we show that we value them when everybody in charge doesn't value them? They actually hate them. These people over here, these innovative people, scare the fuck out of these guys, right? Because innovation is disruptive. It doesn't value the rule system. And these people are all in charge. So the question is how do we fix that? And I'm, by the way, not the only person to come up with this. Multiple articles have been written at Air University over the years about how hard it is going to be in the Air Force to innovate due to this simple dynamic. They treat it like it's rocket surgery, when actually it's super fucking simple. Promote only based on knowledge and experience. Skip performance reports, because performance reports are written by supervisors. Supervisors have bias. Knowledge does not. Either you know the answer or you don't. Even if somebody only learns the answer to get promoted, they showed they A, want the position, and B, were willing to sacrifice to get it. Sacrifice is a key determinant in whether or not you should promote somebody. If they're willing to sacrifice to take a job, like study on their own for fucking 6 weeks before the test, and like I kicked my wife out of the country, my ex-wife, like I kicked her out of the country twice to make my rank. That's a sacrifice, and to show somebody who wants the job and not just a promotion. Because if it was just $100 a month, well, I wouldn't have spent $2,500 flying her places to get $100 a month. Sacrifice is the best determiner of motivation, and motivation is the most important factor in determining whether or not somebody's going to get a job. And the Air Force almost had the answer, because we used to test. You used to have to know something to get promoted, and if you didn't know something, we'd promote you off of experience. And that was a good answer. It's like, anyway. This is the shit that's been rolling around my head for fucking weeks, instead of what I need to be focusing on for my future. And I just... Why do I care about the Air Force anymore? Why does it matter to me? The Air Force couldn't give a shit. Maybe that's another reason why I retired, is because you have all these people over here and they're so invested in their rules. They're impossible to change. It's intractable. Like, they do not like new shit. They want their old shit. It's the same people who, they know it's time to get rid of the A-10. They know it. It's not a secret. It flies low. It's surface-to-air missiles pick it apart really fucking easy. It flies slow. Yes, it does great close air support. But if they've got SAMs on their shoulder, you're just killing pilots. And they know, these same people who know that also know that that's unacceptable to the American people. That having pilots die every day is unacceptable to the American people. And so these are people pleasers. Innovative people just give you the answer. Say, hey, how do I do this? And I go, just do this. These people go, well, the bosses want this, and the civilians want that, and the political fucking environment, blah, blah, blah. And they're just doing a constant revaluation of the rules, hard and soft, with a strong value on the soft, to try to make everybody happy. War doesn't make people happy. Peace does. So you have to stop valuing this if you want to get this. You get the type of leadership you reward. Anyway. I think I've kind of gone off on a tangent, but I just had to get that shit out of my head. Hopefully I have something I can use tomorrow to make the best of it, I guess. Make some videos maybe. I don't know. But I'll talk to you soon. Later.